listeners from around the world. Are you ready? Do you love movies, music, animation and art, acting, gaming, and all things creative? Well, you've come to the right place. Introducing your host, award-winning writer, director, voiceover artist, and owner of MLA Entertainment, Keiko!
Thank you, Josh, and hi everyone, this is Keiko. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Keiko's Diary, your favorite podcast for all things entertaining and creative. While I wear many hats, I consider myself first and foremost a storyteller, and that is why I started this podcast to connect with other creative minds and share their stories with all of you while having a great time doing it. Today, we have the Emmy award-winning team behind the music of some of the biggest shows and movies of all time. Just a few of which include Batman Beyond, Young Justice, Teen Titans, Ben 10, and Justice League. We'll be having an amazing conversation with these legends, but first...
Shameless plugging!
Hop on over to our YouTube channel, MLA Entertainment, and watch our original animated web series, Project Infinity. It's got an amazing voice cast everywhere from New York to Japan to Australia. It's got a really gripping story, so go take a look. Also, like, subscribe, and leave your questions and comments below to show your support for this podcast and MLA. Now on with the show. Among these three composers are Emmys, the Latvian Academy Award known as the Big Kristopher, and countless nominations for Emmy and Annie Awards. They are behind some of the greatest works ever to grace the screen. Together, they create iconic music, and together, they are legends. Everyone, please give a big round of applause for...
This one looks pretty good. Starfire! I could use a hand.
Guys, when we reach the other end of that pipe, we'll be out of tower forever.
Aqualad, let's end this!
The Dynamic Music Partners. Hi everyone, how are you doing?
Great, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing wonderful. Would you guys like to say hello to our listeners and just tell them a little bit more about yourselves?
Sure, why don't we start reverse order? Start with our youngest, Kristopher Carter.
Go for it.
Okay, sure. I'm Kristopher Carter. I grew up in Texas. I decided I would trade my conducting baton about 2 years ago for some DJ decks, and so I'm just trying to enjoy it all.
Cool.
Hi, everybody. I'm Michael. I'm from the Midwest also, but I'm from Missouri. I love everything retro and vintage, and I am just really enjoying writing music and have for the past 30 years.
And nailing it.
Oh, thanks.
And I'm Lolita Ritmanis, and it's an honor to be here with all of you. It's wonderful to connect with the fans, and to have a chance to just kind of shoot the breeze and hopefully get into some interesting topics today with you all.
Absolutely. I'm very much looking forward to the conversation. And you three you're responsible for so many timeless classics and groundbreaking work. So I want to discuss all that good stuff with you. But first, I always personally enjoy starting from the very, very beginning. And so one by one, I'd like to ask you, what is your first memory of life?
Wow, first memory of life.
Yeah, pretty deep.
It is deep. My first memory of life is, I think it's kind of a combination of just a warm familial feeling. I grew up with in a wonderful family. My parents were very supportive of all things music, all things Latvian. We spoke Latvian at home. I have an older brother and sister. So I was kind of the baby of the family. So I have wonderful memories of our yard. I grew up in Portland, Oregon, right next to Reed College, and there was a wonderful nature kind of preserve area that bordered our property. So I just have memories of pheasants walking through the yard and raccoons and going exploring outdoors. And when I wasn't outdoors, I was inside. Pretty early on, I remember being at the piano. So those are some of my earliest memories, kind of not a specific memory, but kind of a general feeling about that time.
Well, those sound like very warm memories.
Mm-hmm.
So, who's next?
Oh, I'll go next. I have, this is very unusual for me because I remember things from when I was an infant.
Wow.
So I think that's probably not a normal thing, at least from what I gather from most people. But my earliest memory was before I could walk. I was very fortunate to know a lot of my relatives. In fact, my great-grandparents were a big part of my life when I was young. And my first memory is being on the floor of my great-grandmother's living room where she put out a baby blanket, and then she would put pillows all the way around the baby blanket.
Oh.
Kind of like a playpen, but without the jail bar effect.
Yeah, I'd say that's an improvement.
Yeah, and so I was in this little baby blanket, like pillow fort thing that she had made. And she was walking in the living room with her blue fuzzy slippers, and I was playing with a set of stacking donuts, which everybody may know what that is. I don't know. They're like these plastic donuts, and they're all a different color, and they're all a different size, and you put them on this peg, and you put them in the order of the size and this little pyramid. And so I just remember, watching her coming toward me, and I was doing my stacking donut thing, and what a great feeling that was to be with her. And since she was my great-grandmother, she's quite a bit older than I was, but she was such an important part of my life, and it's nice to be able to remember her from when I was probably 8 months old or so.
That is crazy that you remember that. That is so cool.
It's weird. I have other memories like that, but that's the first one I can remember.
Wow, that is so cool, Michael. What about you, Kristopher? What's your earliest memory?
That is really amazing. This is actually a hard question for me because I barely can remember last week, much less growing up.
I hear ya.
But I do have my earliest memory of being young, and I was probably about 3 or 4 years old, and I was walking our dog at the park where they had a lily pond, and the dog decided he wanted to go swim.
Uh-oh.
So the dog jumped in, and I let go, and I was simultaneously exhilarated because I was like, dog is swimming, I want to swim. And my mom was terrified that I was going to go follow the dog. And it just kind of, trauma and exhilaration, those make memories. And that's what I can remember from when I was that little. So let's just sum it up. I didn't go in the water and the dog got out just fine.
Oh, that's funny. I was just about to ask you, so you didn't go swimming after all?
No, I didn't.
Well, that's really interesting. A lot of you have very early memories. So I would like to move to our next question, which kind of expands from that. How did you all discover your love for composing, and what exactly led you to pursuing it as a career?
Shall we mix it up this time?
Yeah.
Who wants to go first?
Let's see. How about Kristopher goes first?
Okay, why not? I began playing the piano when I was 4 years old, and it just was, there was a lot of music in my family, even though no one else was a professional musician. And I guess when I was about 12, my piano teacher at the time said, well, why don't you try writing something? And it was this weird kind of nebulous thing of, oh, well, if I sit down and I think about it, I hear some music that I hadn't heard before. And so I wrote a piece for oboe and cello and violin, ended up being played by some student friends in school. And after that, I was like, oh, well, that's kind of cool. That kind of instilled the idea of writing music. But then I was also in the 90s in a hair band. We all had long hair, we were rockers, and we wanted to be the next big Bon Jovi. And so we were also composing, but writing songs. And so there's this broad spectrum of writing, instrumental music and writing songs. And there was just a lot of music being created. And about the time I was a senior in high school, I just thought, this is something I think I'd like to take a shot at. And so I went to school to study composition. And, once you're on that path, you kind of got to go for it all in. So that's why I followed it. I just couldn't imagine doing anything else.
That's really cool. And that's really neat to know that you had a love for it so early and you were always doing something musical.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. What about you, Lolita?
Well, my sister, Brigitte, is 15 years older than I am. So when I was a little kid, I would always be hearing her practice the piano in the living room. And that was just a natural thing that I assumed that was part of what you do. You just play the piano. So I started very, very young playing the piano, and in addition to doing my exercises and my scales and arpeggios, I just started making up my own little tunes, and that's really at a very, very early age. But I do credit my sister for she's transcribed some of my compositions and put the tape cassette recorder on and recorded some of those early pieces, probably at starting at age 9 or so. So.
Wow.
Yeah, if she had not done that, I had some of my earliest songs where I was a very young kid, and I just loved making up stories, making up stories on the piano, basically, looking out the window and kind of making up my own little film score of whatever was going on outside or inside my head. So.
That is very neat. Both of you, you were just writing music and creating your own tunes so early, so that was very telling. What about you, Michael?
Well, my story is very different than Lolita and Kristopher. I didn't write any music until I was 16 years old. I come from a musical family, I guess you would say. My mother was a pianist and a very talented vocal music instructor, and she told me early on that she was practicing piano, and I think she was working on her master's degree or something right before I was born. So I was sort of involved because I was right there in front of the keyboard, even though I hadn't been born yet.
Yeah.
And she played a lot, when I was in the womb. And so I also took piano from a very young age, since I was 5, and enjoyed classical music so much. And that was kind of my thing as a kid. I never really related to rock music or pop music or anything like that until I was in college. But a weird thing happened to me when I was 16 years old. I went on an exchange program to Europe and spent 2 weeks at the Mozarteum in Salzburg. And while I was there, I happened to have a manuscript book with me, and I would go back to the place where we were staying, which was kind of a really, really nice hostel or dorm type place. And it's like somebody turned on a tap, and suddenly I just was overflowing with music. My brain was just creating this music out of nowhere. It's not because I wanted to. It's not because I asked for it. It just happened. It's like somebody turned on a water faucet, literally, and never turned it off. Wow. And so I thought, well, geez, this is really, maybe I should try to write this down. And so I would spend afternoons they had some piano practice rooms there at the dorm, and I would spend afternoons in the practice room trying to write down what I was hearing. And, just kind of what's going on here. And that's how I got started composing. And I ended up, my first piece was a piece for SATB choir and piano accompaniment. And it just came out of nowhere. And I thought, wow. And I happened to grow up at the time when all those wonderful George Lucas and Steven Spielberg films were out in the 70s. And it was, Star Wars and Raiders and all these kind of things were happening. So I went to the drive-in theater and saw this movie called Superman, which was the Richard Donner Superman, and I fell in love with that score. And it was right at the same time I'd been doing all this writing. Yeah. And I thought to myself, gee, I'd never heard music that was for orchestra that wasn't really classical, but that was very relatable and very tuneful and really uplifting. And I thought, well, geez, if I could write music like that for the rest of my life, I would be happy. And so I decided, well, I had this big talk with my mom in the car, and I just said, I feel like I really ought to try this. I feel like if I don't try this, I'm going to regret this for the rest of my life if I don't just give this a shot. And she said, we're here for you, and if you want to go to Los Angeles and try to be a film composer, you can always come back, and you always have a place to stay. And I said, well, that's all I needed to hear. So that's how I got started. It was like a combination of like somebody turning on this tap and then me being in the right place at the right time to hear that incredible music by John Williams, and it all just kind of came together.
That is really neat. Someone was telling you need to be a composer today.
I guess, yeah, it was like a big message or something, because I wasn't really pursuing it. It just sort of happened to me. Everything coalesced.
Yeah, and it's really neat that you bring up those movies because, I mean, Star Wars and those other big films, I mean, you associate the music just as much as the characters with it. And so just like your work, I mean, I just love the music you've all composed. And so music that really stands out and sticks with you for a long time is very special. So,
oh, thank you.
You're welcome. So why don't we switch things up a bit? This is one of my favorite parts of the show. It's called
The 60-Second 411.
And this is a game where we've got a timer and we've got 60 seconds to see if we can answer 15 questions. Who dares to try? And I'm going to be spitting these questions out like rapid fire. The goal is just to see how many we can get in before the time is up.
Okay, okay, Mike's going. Yay, good. Brave soul. Brave soul,
yes.
Go for it.
Okay.
Yes. All right, so are you ready to play, Michael?
I'm as ready as I'm going to be.
No worries, you got this. I am starting the timer in 3, 2, 1. Favorite color?
Blue.
Favorite movie?
Superman.
Favorite song?
Oh, September.
Favorite TV show?
Schitt's Creek.
Greatest fear?
Having our show canceled.
Hot or cold weather?
Mediterranean.
Oh, yeah. Night owl or morning bird?
I'm becoming a morning bird, but I'm kind of a diehard night owl.
Favorite Spice Girl?
I don't know what that is.
Favorite food?
Favorite balloon?
Favorite food?
Oh, favorite food. Comfort food.
Favorite holiday?
Oh, gosh, Thanksgiving.
Favorite subject in school?
Math.
Favorite place in the world?
Denmark.
Biggest pet peeve?
Bad communication.
If you had a superpower, what would it be?
Flight.
Indoors or outdoors?
Indoors.
There we go, right at the clock. It just went off. 60 seconds.
Did we get through the whole list?
We just barely did.
Yay!
Yeah, and I could scratch off just a little bit the last one, but I was asking it already, so we count it as all 15. Well done, Michael.
Cool. Yay! That was fun.
Great job. That was really fast. Who wants to play next?
I'll go.
All right, Lolita. Are you ready?
As ready as I'll ever be. I like to overthink things, so this is very hard for me. So, okay.
Yeah, just the first thing that comes into your head will do.
Okay.
All right. And starting the timer in 3, 2, and 1. Favorite color?
Purple.
Favorite movie?
Being There.
Ooh, favorite song?
Both Sides Now.
Favorite TV show?
West Wing.
Greatest fear?
Death of a child.
Hot or cold weather?
Hot.
Night owl or morning bird?
Morning bird.
Favorite Spice Girl?
Posh.
Favorite food?
Latvian rye bread.
Favorite holiday?
Christmas.
Favorite subject in school?
Literature.
Favorite place in the world?
Maui.
Ooh, biggest pet peeve?
Passive aggressive behavior.
Ooh, if you had a superpower, what would it be?
Flight.
Indoors or outdoors?
Outdoors.
You did it! Oh my goodness!
Yeah.
Oh, yay! Two.
So that's 2 people who have gotten it right. So it's just one more, Chris.
I can do it. I'm ready.
You can do this. Yeah, I've got a good feeling. I love all your answers, by the way. And Michael, his confusion on that one question is hysterical.
I don't know what Posh is.
That is so funny. We'll talk to you about it later.
Okay.
Christopher, are you ready?
I am ready.
All right. Starting the timer in 3, 2, and 1. Favorite color?
Brown.
Favorite movie?
Amelie.
Favorite song?
YYZ.
Ooh, favorite TV show?
The X-Files.
Ooh, greatest fear?
Lots of rats.
Oh, me too. Hot or cold weather?
Hot.
Night owl or morning bird?
I'm kind of a tired day-night ostrich.
Favorite Spice Girl?
Baby Spice.
Aw, favorite food?
Sushi.
Favorite holiday?
Oh, National Piano Day.
Ooh, favorite subject in school?
Orchestra.
Favorite place in the world?
Ibiza, Spain.
Biggest pet peeve?
I'm a coffee snob, so it'd have to be stale coffee beans.
If you had a superpower, what would it be?
Well, I'm already a pilot, so I can't say flight, but splitting into multiple people so I can do it all.
Cool. Indoors or outdoors?
Indoors.
You did it! You did it! Oh my goodness. So that is all 3 winners. You're all winners today. Great job.
Fun. This is the first time we've ever done this.
Is that right?
I've done 15 questions like in a long interview form where I had like 4 weeks to come up with these answers, and each one had to be a paragraph. And wow, that was intense.
That was intense. That was a lot of fun. It's just a great way for the viewers to get to know a lot of likes and dislikes. So it's always fun to play.
I would like to say that rats are also a huge fear of mine. I went a little bit more profound, but it's like, yeah, rats are like, I'm right there with Christopher with that.
Oh my goodness, especially in multitudes. Yes, what a nightmare.
Yes.
Our mentor Shirley Walker worked on a movie called Willard, and I actually have not seen that, so because it's all about that.
Oh, yeah. Moving back to composing and your wonderful careers, I was wondering, because at one point you guys weren't this magic team. You were doing your own thing before you met, and so I was wondering, could you tell us about your individual beginnings in the business before you met and became a dream team?
So I decided in order to be a film composer, the kind of film composer that I wanted to be, I had no knowledge about film music or synchronization or anything technical, and I needed to kind of get myself an education. So I went to school and got a bachelor's in composition, and then I came out to USC and did one of their early incarnations of their film scoring program as a graduate student, and that's where I really learned the nuts and bolts of film music. After graduating from that program, I got this wonderful job as a personal assistant for a keyboard player named Mike Lang. He's just an incredible genius of a session keyboard player and has played on, you've heard him. You might not know that you've heard him, but he's played on so many films and so many motion pictures and soundtracks, and so talented. All the films that you know and love, he's been a part of many of them.
Wow.
And so I was his assistant for 3 years, and during that time, I learned a lot from him just by osmosis, just by being around him. And I also went to a lot of sessions of people like Jerry Goldsmith and John Williams and people like that. And that was a wonderful education just being there. And I guess at the time I was also doing a lot of work in the recording booth, where I would sit and follow a score while someone was recording their music and tell them what was going on. And I also did some orchestration work where you take someone's composition and you put it on the huge tall orchestra paper, 1 line per instrument, and assign all the different instruments to what they're going to play, and did quite a bit of that. And eventually a guy named Don Walker was working with Mike Lang on his synthesizer setup, and Don asked me one day, what do I do when I'm not working with Mike? And I said, well, I'm a film composer. And he said, oh, really? My wife's a film composer. I said, oh, really? He said, yeah. I said, well, I'd love to get her opinion on my music. And he said, well, do you have a recording you can give me? And I said, I sure do. So I gave him, at the time, a demo tape, a cassette tape. And he took it away, and I just said, well, I'd love to hear anything she has to say about my music. And I never heard back from him or from her until one day I got this phone call. And on the other end of the phone, it was this woman, and she said, Mike, my name is Shirley Walker. I'm Dawn's wife. And I heard your demo, and I thought it was terrific, and I'm doing a show, and I'd love for you to write on the show with me. And it's a show called Batman the Animated Series. And I said, well, Batman, that sounds fantastic. She said, well, don't answer me now, but think about it, because you have to write in my style and you have to follow my direction. You can't just do whatever you want, but call me in 3 days and, let me know if you're interested. And so I did what you did. I set my timer for 3 days.
Yeah.
And when 3 days was up, I called her back and said, I don't want to work on Batman.
Oh, that's so funny.
So that's kind of how I got my start. And in fact, that's how I met Lolita and Chris, because the three of us ended up working on that same show. But that's how I got to that point.
That is so exciting. And it escalated so quickly.
Yeah. I mean, who would have known?
It was so meant to be. What about you, Lolita?
Well, you heard the Shirley Walker story, so that part of the story is quite similar for me. But prior to having the opportunity to work for Shirley Walker, I moved down to Los Angeles at about an age, I was 17, almost 18.
Wow.
And I went to a trade school called the Dick Grove School of Music, which was a school primarily focusing on contemporary music, arranging, composing. I also did the film scoring program. And after I graduated or completed those programs, I was able to get a job as a music proofreader at first at Disney Studios and eventually at Warner Brothers. And my job was, it was kind of the equivalent of being in the mailroom of the film music business, because I was hired to look at scores and the musician parts, look for mistakes, put the music on the stands for the recording sessions. And I was very much a fly on the wall at these incredible recording sessions for all the great, so many of the great composers, everyone from John Williams to Bill Conti. There weren't very many female composers that were on the podium. It was a different era. So when I actually had an opportunity to start working for Shirley, it was a really important, pivotal moment, I think, in my life. I had done a lot of orchestrating for Michael Kamen, Basil Polidoris, some work for Snuffy Walden, a little bit for Burt Bacharach. I was kind of more focused on arranging and orchestrating as my ways to earn a living. And so Shirley changed my life as far as giving me an opportunity to be eventually a full-time composer and to develop these wonderful relationships over the years with Michael and later Kristopher. And the wonderful thing about our partnership is that we have always, it's not like there's a switch that now we are a three-headed musical machine and we just hold hands and write together all the time. We are really there to support one another. We do not usually write in the same room. Very rarely do we write in the same room.
Interesting.
We compose apart from one another. We share the workload and we have a great communication about the styles of the shows and such. And we can also be there to support each other on our individual projects as well as needed, both creatively if needed, and also just mainly just to have that support system. Just it's such a lonely business and such a very difficult business that's been our most our strongest asset is that we have a great strength together because we support one another and we inspire one another. So
yeah, and that's very powerful. And how neat to look back at where you started. I mean, those people had no clue a legend was in their midst, so you never know who you're working with. And what about you, Kristopher, as far as your first steps into the business?
My first steps actually started right out of college. When I was in the orchestra in college, I played the double bass in the orchestra, the big stand-up bass.
Oh, cool!
And my stand partner, the person I shared the music stand with, happened to be one of Shirley Walker's sons.
No way.
And his name is Ian, and he's a brilliant musician. And he, very graciously offered to introduce me to his mom when she came to see one of our orchestra concerts. And right as soon as I graduated, I actually got a phone call from her, which is similar to the one that Michael talked about. But she had already, Michael and Lolita were the first two people that she brought into this Batman the Animated Series process of being, you talk about jumping into the big time. She wanted to use her position in the industry as an established composer to help up-and-coming composers get their first credit into Hollywood and work with an orchestra and experience what it's like to be near the top of the business. And so she was, but also because she kind of had put herself on the line in having to supervise all these composers, that's why she was very clear that you had to write in her style, and it was about supporting her vision for the show.
Yeah.
And but by the time that she got around to inviting me to the team, she'd already been through invited like 30 other composers on the show. So at this point, she dispensed with the call me in 3 days. She just said, "How soon can you come out to LA? I want to put you to work."
Oh, wow.
It was actually literally 2 weeks later. I had a pickup truck in Texas. I put everything in my truck. I drove out to LA and I joined her team. So I didn't really have a chance to do much professionally, before I was actually out here working in Shirley's team. And so, it was definitely trying to learn how to drink from a fire hose of information and experience and just being inspired by all these incredible composers around me. And there really wasn't a whole lot of that happened before I joined the team. And then it was after Shirley's, Shirley went on to work on feature films that she told Warner Brothers. She said, you guys have been working with Michael and Lolita and Kristopher for all these years, and why don't you continue to work with them? So she cleared the way for them to continue to hire us on our own. And you talk about it being a dream team. I mean, it's definitely a dream team for me to be around these three people and share my career with them, the career path, and be inspired and supported. And that's the thing that is such a dream, is having a quality of life in addition to to following this career that I'm really passionate about.
Yeah, that true camaraderie and sharing of a passion with others, that's so special when it happens. And after that, you became a team and you started working together. And one of the early hits, there's so many, but one of the early hits was the animated series Batman Beyond. And what a classic that is. It won 2 Emmys and is one of the most acclaimed animated series of all time. And so the music is no doubt one of the standout aspects of the show for me personally. So I was wondering if you could tell us just a little bit about the process for that show and what it was like coming up with the music for it.
The series, I'll just go ahead and speak briefly about it. I mean, the series was a departure from what we had done for Batman and Superman, the animated series, because we traded a huge orchestra that we all record the music in one session for more of a record production type of style. There was separate sessions with guitars and basses and other instruments, and then we spent several days mixing the scores. And that was the biggest difference, was that it was not so much about showing up at the stage and making the music all at once, but actually piecing together the music more as you would with a record.
Right, yeah. You have anything to add to that, Michael?
I can tell you that I had to call Lolita up and ask her what the range of the electric guitar was. Because I didn't know anything about electric guitar. But I had confidence. I was like, I know I can do this, and we had some examples that they'd provided for us to listen to, and I thought, okay, that'll be fun and that'll be different. I mean, the whole reason I got into this career anyway was to do a lot of different kinds of music and not have to repeat myself from time to time and really just creatively stretch. And I thought, well, this is the kind of career where you can never run out of fun things to do. So this was just, I thought, well, I signed up for this, so I better get with it. And so Lolita gave me the scoop on the electric guitar, and I was ready to go.
And that's so cool that Lolita happened to know about that. I mean, who would have known? What about you, Lolita? Any memories that stand out to you on that show?
Well, I believe that is one of the most incredibly long term. It will be around forever. That show. The artwork is just amazing. It had such a incredibly different stylistic approach. from the artwork to the way it was written, just the storytelling, and every project that we work on is its own little gem, and you have to find the kind of the magic key of what will make this particular series, or what will make this film stand out, what will be its unique stamp. And I think that for us, for Shirley and her team at that point, the triumph in actually getting this job was kind of a wonder. It was kind of a miracle, the fact that we got this job and people had thought of us a certain way, and now we could do right in this style. So I'm very grateful for learning that lesson early on, to not put each other in a certain box, if this is the only style that you write in, or this is the only genre that you are known for, so that's what you will do forever and ever, and allow yourself to kind of have the creative freedom to really go for it and try things out. So it always brings a smile to my face when I think about that show, because it's just the coolness factor is off the charts, I think. So.
Yeah, you are not alone. I feel the same way. And undoubtedly another one of the most iconic shows you guys have worked on is the original Teen Titans. I love this series so much. It was huge, and to this day, I mean, it's so big. And I'm serious when I say the music is one of the things that stood out to me on the show. I literally tweeted about it and sometime this year, talking about how that was one of the standouts to me because I was rewatching it. So I would just love to hear what you guys recall from working on this project. I mean, I just can't even imagine where you begin sitting down for Teen Titans. Let's come up with some music. I mean, where did you guys begin?
Well, I just wanted to say where with Batman Beyond, we were working primarily with Bruce Timm. When we got to Teen Titans, it was Glenn Murakami. And Glenn Murakami has such an ability to give us a long leash, sort of.
Yeah.
To open the creative floodgates. And he is a fascinating human being in that I think he had certain ideas of what he liked, definitely, and what he gravitated towards, but to not restrict the composer's creative ideas, he really wanted to hear what we had to come up with. And we had such a great time getting together with him and playing him our ideas, or sometimes, because we often did have some live instruments on this series, we would say, well, this is what it sounds like now, but wait till we put the real guitar on this, or the woodwinds, and it's just, I think every episode had its kind of own unique stamp, and just the character voices too, just being so inspired by the brilliance of the actors and their performances. I think that that was another thing that really stood out for me in that, because there was such a lightness and such, again, coolness factor, but a completely different style than Batman Beyond. And
for 5 seasons, that was a long time.
Amazing. Maybe, and we would love to do more, so never know.
The fans would love that too, so let's set this up.
Never know.
What about you, Kristopher?
Well, I think that, like Lolita was saying, we definitely had a really long leash. I remember Glenn wouldn't actually tell us what his favorite thing were, because he really didn't want us to do the same thing, because if he thought, if I tell you I love this, then you guys are just going to give me that. So every new episode, we would sit down, we were doing these individually at the time, and just say, okay, well, what kind of crazy thing do you want to try for this episode? And so whereas many of our previous series, and a lot of our series end up having kind of a very specific type of sound, this one was more a joyous celebration of what can we do with music for film, and just kind of go crazy with it. Yeah.
And that's just so exciting when the creativity is just allowed to flow however it may, just naturally, nothing holding it back. Just a really, really great soundtrack for that show. So, Michael, what do you recall from working on this show?
Well, I haven't ever done another show like it. It was just so unique.
Yeah.
Was it Glenn's first show? I believe it might have been Glenn Murakami's first solo, like this is his first show that he did on his own, as the main producer, I mean the creative driving force. And I just thought it took an incredible amount of courage for him to open up the musical style to be whatever it needed to be for each individual episode. Because in my mind, when he was talking about that, I was thinking to myself, well, how's that going to work? Because every time we'd done a show before and the show had been successful, the show really had a sound. We sculpted this sound that was the sound of the show. And if you hear that music, you're watching that show. And that was really, really important from an identity perspective.
Right.
And to build a world, that the show would operate within. And when Glenn was just like, well, I don't know, what do you think it needs to be for this episode? And I would say something like, well, I don't know, how about electric violin? And he'd be just like, great. Okay. Really, literally, it would just be like, let's just throw something at the wall and see what sticks. And he was so willing to go anywhere. That I got a lot of energy out of that as a composer, because then I could go back and create something really nuts in my studio that really gave that episode a personality, and it, because we did that for every episode, it really did hang together as a show, because you never knew what you were going to get. It was always going to be something interesting and always something fun and different. And I think that maybe that's why people still love it, because it has a kind of a refreshing quality every single episode.
Refreshing. That is a good word. There's just a certain energy that you can't put your finger on in every episode. It's just exciting. So you can feel that creative energy that you had going on. Definitely. Cool. Why don't we switch gears again and play another game that I'm sure you've heard of?
Truth or Dare.
Everyone goes twice, so you all get a shot at a truth or a dare. So who dares to play first?
I'll go for it.
All right, Kristopher. Truth or dare?
Do I get to know what it is?
No, that's the game.
Not how it works.
The game
Not how it works.
You know what? I'm going to take a dare. I'm going to live on the edge.
Okay. Could you say the tongue twister 3 times fast? Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers.
I accept the challenge.
All right, go for it.
Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers.
Oh my goodness, that was really good. And you said it so fast. Good job. That was really good. Lolita, would you like to play next?
Sure.
Truth or dare?
Truth.
All right, Lolita, it's truth time. Who is the bossiest?
Between what? In my life, or between with our partners?
Yes, the dynamic music partners.
I think I am.
Oh, really?
I am the bossy.
I think we each think we are. I think each of us thinks that each of us is.
That's funny. All right, Michael, truth or dare?
Truth.
All right. What was the most demanding project you worked on?
The 3 of us together?
Yeah, or just overall in your career, looking back. What was the most intense?
I think this is going to be a strange answer, but I think the most demanding project we worked on was probably an independent film we did called Broke Sky, because the 3 of us worked together on the motion picture, but we only had 9 days to score the picture and record the music and deliver it.
Are you kidding me? 9 days?
I'm not kidding you, and that's why it worked, because there's 3 of us.
Yeah.
I mean, normally it would just be next to impossible, but we did a bang-up job and really just did a great job on it. It was a very low-budget production, and that's another reason why it was difficult, because the less money you have on a project to work with, the less people you can hire and the less resources that you have.
Right.
And so I think I just remember it's like I had to not do anything for 9 days but write music and record music. That's all I could do, and I barely had time to sleep. So
yeah, just lock yourself in a room and work around the clock.
That's what you sign up for when you're a film composer. So
yeah, you never know what's going to come your way. All right, Kristopher, truth or dare?
I will do truth this time.
Okay. What project took the most time versus the least time to make the music for?
Well, it's actually not a project that we worked on together, but I would say doing anything in advertising is an incredible amount of effort for an incredibly short period of time. You would not believe how many revisions you'll go through on a 30-second ad. You know, they'll get notes like, okay, when the character does this, we want the music to change. And when the character does that, we want the music to change. And you have to realize that they're like 2/3 of a second apart.
Crazy, yeah, I can imagine.
But yeah, that's for me personally, working in advertising on 30-second spots is definitely the most time I've ever had to spend effort on a project.
Wow.
For such a little time.
Yeah, exactly. A lot packed into that 30 seconds.
Yeah.
All right. Who is next? Who hasn't gone twice yet? Let's see. Lolita, would you like to go next?
Sure. I'm such a chicken with the dare thing that I'm going to do truth again. I just, like, the dare is just, like, it freaks me out. So, okay.
Well, that's
truth.
understandable.
Truth.
Okay. What is the last song you listened to?
The last song I listened to. Well, that's interesting. It's actually a song that my husband's uncle, who just passed away, wrote, called I Choose You All Over Again.
Oh, wow.
We were listening to all of his songs, and it was the other night. It was really a wonderful evening of remembering all of his songs, and it's kind of touching. So, yeah.
Wow, that's really special.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. Michael, would you like to go next? Truth or dare?
Oh, I'll do the dare this time since I did the truth last time.
Okay. Why don't we try your hand at tongue twisters as well? Would you like to say as fast as you can 3 times, Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers?
Okay, I'm just going to shake it out here.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Coming from a voice actress, oh my gosh. I'm intimidated already.
Oh, you got this.
Okay. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers.
That was
nervous.
Woo!
Chris won that one, hands down.
Well, you both did good. It's surprising. No matter how much you practice, sometimes it can be tricky.
For sure.
So,
That's the twister.
Well, thank you guys for playing Truth or Dare with me. That was a lot of fun.
I was afraid you're going to ask us for like Fox and Socks or one of those super crazy ones.
Oh, yeah.
It's the sheep one that gets me. The sixth sheep sick.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah. One other show that I have to talk about is one that some viewers might not be as familiar with, but they should go check it out on iTunes. It's a live-action series that aired on Cartoon Network. For myself, it's the best live-action series I have ever seen. It's incredible. The music just transports you and immerses you in this nail-biting, mysterious world. And it was called Tower Prep. And so I must applaud you 3 for your work on it. Paul Dini created the show, and you've been involved in his projects before. So could you tell us about when this project came up and just what the experience was like working on this particular project?
Wow, Keiko, golly. The fact that you know about that show, I think it only aired for 1 season, and I don't even know that it was ever syndicated. Although I think you can get it on streaming services.
It's on iTunes.
But that's great that you found that show. We love that show so much.
Oh, really?
I think that show came our way because of Paul Dini. We've known him for a long, long time, ever since Batman the Animated Series was happening, and we're just very fond of him. And he was one of the creative forces behind that show. And I remember, do you guys remember, did he call us about the show? I can't remember exactly how it went down.
I'm pretty sure he did.
Yeah, I think he may have called us and said, look, I've got this live action show and I really want you guys to do it. And Glenn Morgan was involved too, who had worked with Shirley on one of her, they had been doing features together. And so that was another kind of kismet thing that happened for us, having that connection with Shirley and with Batman and that whole world from early in our careers. But yeah, what a great experience that was. We loved having the live action show to work on just because it was different. It was something different. We worked on so many animated shows, and when you're looking at, artwork, that's one thing. But when you're looking at people, human beings, that's another thing. And the music that is required for that is very different. So, that was a wonderful experience. I wanted that to go on forever. I thought the premise was fantastic. It was so intriguing, and just the whole idea of it was really fascinating.
It truly was fascinating. Just every single episode, it was just a work of art, right down to the music. Fantastic. What about you, Lolita? What do you remember from that show?
Oh, I just, I love working in animation, but for me, it was a wonderful kind of a respite to look at character, like actual live human beings on the screen, and still have it have that cool kind of mysterious vibe to it, and also to be dealing with students in that age group where there's so much stuff going on internally anyway for kids in that demographic, and to kind of call back to how I felt when I was a teenager, and things are larger than life and more dramatic anyway, and it was fun to kind of put myself back in the feeling of what would it be like to be that age again, and to have all these different experiences. It was a very wonderful experience. I was very sad when it didn't continue on. So
I know, here I am, like 11 years later, still holding out hope for it. So
you never know. I mean, look what happened with Young Justice, for heaven's sakes. That was, off the radar for many years, and fans just rallied, and here we are working on Young Justice again now.
Exactly, and especially with things like Netflix always picking up projects and properties. So fingers crossed.
I think carry the torch and spearhead a movement.
Yeah, let's do that. What about you, Kristopher? The music is just so unique, and it really pulls you in. So what do you recall working on the episodes of this show?
Well, I know that, high school was traumatic enough, even if you're not kidnapped and forced to go into it. So I think just it was therapeutic to kind of work through the frustrations of high school in the music, and kind of relive it and be like, well, I'm glad that we're only watching that show and not having to live it. But yeah, I like Lolita and Michael, just thought that the show was fabulous, and I loved the story. Paul is such a great original storyteller, and I also was really sad that it didn't get to continue.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yeah, he definitely, it's like your music. You can always tell when Paul Dini's behind it. And just like when I hear your music, I'm like, I have a good feeling that the dynamic music partners are behind that. And I'll look it up, and it's like, sure enough. So you must all feel like royalty with all the great work you've done. So what is your favorite part about what you do? And personally, what are you most proud of?
I'll just say briefly, my favorite part is getting to work in a business where you're surrounded by such creative people, and not just, I'm surrounded by creative musicians like Michael and Lolita, and all the performers that we work with, but also the fabulous artists and the actors and the technicians and the editors, and all these people that are also have this shared passion about creating something art collaboratively, and that is really my favorite thing and makes me excited to come to work every day. Personally, what I'm most proud of is come back to me.
Good answer. Yeah, it's ongoing.
Mm-hmm. I'll go next. My favorite part about what I do is when I have the opportunity to compose music where it's truly a collaboration, where there is mutual respect, and there is an opportunity where there's from whoever the creative force is behind giving us or myself the job, where there's a respect and a desire to hear what I have to say. That is my absolute favorite. Those are my favorite musical moments to work as far as in this industry. And I'm most proud of the fact that we've managed to carve out a somewhat long-lasting career, and that we are constantly reinventing ourselves. That takes a lot of energy. it's a very exhausting and exhilarating career in the same breath. So I'm most proud of our longevity and our ability to be able to maintain our wonderful collaborative spirit and friendship. And yeah, that's what I'm most proud of, really.
Well, I would definitely say that's something to be proud of. It's an intense business, and you show how it's done. So well done. What about you, Michael?
Well, I agree with everything they both said, for sure. I think my favorite part, in addition to what they both said, is probably working with these incredible musicians that bring our music to life. Anytime we have a chance to work with someone who's just a master of their craft, a master of their instrument, it brings a certain kind of excitement and energy to the music that we write that you just can't get any other way. And I am always, humbled and surprised and delighted at what I get back when I ask someone to play something that I've written, because it's always more than I ever imagined it could be. So I don't think I've ever had a situation with a professional musician where I felt like I got back less than what I was hearing in my head. It's always been something more. And I feel like that's, bringing that to the music is it lives on with the music at that point. It becomes part of the composition. Their performance becomes part of what everyone ends up experiencing and loving about the music. So I think that's probably my favorite part. And I think in addition to what both Chris and Lolita just said about what they're most proud of, I'm proud of those things too. And I'm also very, very proud of the fact that we make a special effort with every show to score every scene from start to finish. We have not done any library music type things where we'll just score a little bit here and then use the music in the rest of the show. We actually approach the show as a story, and we score every scene and every episode note by note, scene by scene. Perfectly matches what the concept is of the producer or the director, and it is able to turn on a dime and express exactly what they want to have expressed every single time. And I think the reason I'm saying that is because we approach our work with no compromises in mind. The three of us have always, for the past 3 decades, approach this as if we want to do the very best job we can for every single show, and we're not going to make any compromises. We want it, whatever we end up writing is going to be there with the show forever, and we want it to be the very best it can possibly be. So I'm very proud of that approach.
Right. Every project is your most important project. I really like that mentality. Yes. Yeah. Well, the music you make always has so much personality, and it adds such an identifiable quality to the stories that you make it for. And I really think the music is what takes these projects to the next level and makes them lasting works of art. So well done for all you've accomplished and continue to accomplish.
Thanks so much.
So would you mind telling the fans what they can look forward to from you and how they can best keep up with you and your work? Lolita, would you like to take it from here?
Well, we are absolutely thrilled to be working on Young Justice, and we're not exactly sure when this new season will premiere, but it is. It's airing. The previous seasons are airing on HBO Max, and it's just a joy to work on this series with producers Brandon Vietti and Greg Weisman. And personally, I'm really excited about the fact that we're coming out of the pandemic.
Yes,
we will hopefully be able to have large recording sessions with musicians and have some travel and attend festivals and have our music performed all around the world, and just as wonderful as it is to be in our caves, it's certainly much nicer to be out of our caves and connecting with people in person, and getting to meet them and having them listen to our music. So I'm looking forward to kind of slowly dipping my toe back into real life of actually being with human beings in person. So.
Yeah, you must miss that, being able to connect with others through your music, for sure. What about you, Kristopher? Anything to say to the fans?
Well, we're just thrilled that people have been so supportive of us and our music and our shows, and as far as how they can best keep up with us, we have a website, dynamicmusicpartners.com. We're on all the social media, mainly Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. So if you search for us individually or collectively, we all have pages, and we'd love to connect with you all there. Personally, just looking forward to getting back out and seeing people, and really proud of what, at least in California, people have been doing to try and help make it possible for us to get out there and be together again.
Yes, for sure. And Michael, what about you?
I'm thrilled to be working on Young Justice. I think that's a great example of what Lolita was describing before, as having this marvelous relationship with creators who really want what you have to offer. They want the best of you. And I know when I sit down to write for that show, I always just think, wow, I have the freedom to bring something unusual to this, and I know that I'm going to be supported in that and heard, and that's really, really great. So loving that. Enjoying a little bit of the isolation. I'm very much an introvert, and so it's been kind of a healing time for me, just as a person, to be able to be a little bit sequestered. But of course, being able to see family and friends and being able to work with musicians in person, what a wonderful thing that's going to be to be able to do again. And just very thankful that we're on the upswing in our country of health and the downswing of infections and hospitalizations. So that's great.
Yeah, I agree with that. Well, that wraps up another episode of Keiko's Diary. I want to say thank you to our listeners for their love and support, as well as Lolita, Kristopher, and Michael for joining us. Now, before we go...
We're the Dynamic Music Partners. I'm Lolita Ritmanis.
I'm Kristopher Carter.
And I'm Michael McCuistion. And for MLA Entertainment,
check out their original web series, Project Infinity.
And as always, keep being creative.
Thank you for listening to Keiko's Diary. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. We would love to hear from you. Write questions and comments to show your support and share this podcast with your friends. We'll be back with another exciting episode before you know it. In the meantime, keep being creative.